Okay, this is John McDonnell and Helen Loder. We're on our weekly politics show between 10 and 12 on Hayes FM, 91.8 FM. We're also on the internet. This is Steam Radio. It's a community radio station, and I'm laughing because as I fiddle with these sliders and all the rest of us on this equipment, we're also trying to set up our next telephone interview. We're going to interview a woman called Sasha Rodoy. We've just had a really interesting discussion with Paula Peters from DPAC, just so People Against the Cuts, about their campaign on the Independent Living Fund. I want to talk to Sasha Rodoy because this is another campaign that we've been involved in, and it's about laser eye surgery. Let me just give you the background to this very, very briefly before we speak to the main campaigner, Sasha. The background is this. That a number of years ago, an MP, the late Frank Cook, he unfortunately is no longer with us, went for laser eye surgery to correct his eyesight and didn't have a particularly good experience. So he started to talk to others about what was happening. Was this a regular occurrence, and how successful laser eye surgery is, and basically how it was being marketed and implemented via a number of these private companies, corporations, that undertake the laser eye surgery practice. He brought together a team of people, experts in the field, to look at a whole range of services associated with laser eye surgery. At the same time which the Consumer magazine was undertaking research into laser eye surgery, and they found, as did Frank Cook, a number of worrying practices. First of all, the way in which laser eye surgery was marketing, a very heavy-handed sales approach in promoting laser eye surgery, a lack of information being provided to people about not just the successes of laser eye surgery, but a lack of information about the drawbacks and the things that could go wrong. Then there were concerns expressed by a number of people about, first of all, how the surgery was operated upon, how it was undertaken, how people were operated upon, then the treatment after things go wrong, post-operative treatment, and what support there was. And so what Frank did is he brought together a team of people, they produced a report, and he brought forward a proposal under private legislation within Parliament, a private members' bill, to basically regulate the laser eye surgery industry, because that's what's become. A large number of people are going for laser eye surgery. Companies are making quite sizable profits out of it. And so Frank wanted to make sure that the government was regulating, there was a proper system of regulation. First of all, so that all the marketing techniques were controlled more effectively. There were a number of complaints that had taken place and that had been upheld about the marketing techniques, about some of the claims being made for laser eye surgery by the major companies. So he wanted the advertising controlled, he wanted all that marketing processes controlled as well, so there wasn't these heavy-handed techniques of pressurized salesmanship. He wanted to ensure that all the surgeons who were undertaking laser eye surgery, refractive surgery as they call it, were properly qualified, and he wanted to ensure that people, when they went into the laser eye surgery, were properly informed and that they had proper processes for consent, deciding that they wanted to go ahead with the surgery, having a delay between then and the actual surgery taking place, that they could gain all the information and review their decision if necessary. And then on top of that, he wanted to ensure that there was post-operative care, so if something did go wrong, there was be proper treatment to overcome the problems that people are experiencing. He put that all together in legislation in terms of a private members' bill. It never went very far beyond the initial debate, because it was a private members' bill is largely to highlight an issue, and hopefully either the government will act or the industry itself will act. I think what Frank was hoping for is that the industry would regulate itself and there wouldn't be a need for legislation. But if it didn't regulate itself, well, therefore the legislation was on the shelf for government to implement. Well, many years on, the problems have continued. Still problems about the marketing processes, the heavy pressurized sales techniques. Still problems about the lack of qualification of some of the surgeons operating. Still problems about the post-operative support that's given for people when it goes wrong. So therefore, I was approached by Sasha Rodoy, who's the campaigner who launched the My Beautiful Eyes campaign, to promote the legislation again and to bring it forward in Parliament. I originally supported Frank's piece of legislation. I was one of the dozen other MPs that put my name to the bill that he produced. So I went into Parliament and we held the debate, setting out all the concerns that people have and calling upon the government to regulate the industry and bring forward new regulations. At the same time, the government was investigating the problems that were taking place in other areas of cosmetic surgery, in particular breast implants, and they launched under the Director of Medicine, the Director of Medical Health in the NHS, Professor Keogh. They launched the Keogh Inquiry into Cosmetic Surgery, and he brought forward a report basically putting to the government proposals for the regulation of cosmetic surgery overall, including laser eye surgery, the regulation of laser eye surgery. We've met ministers and we've been promoting the implementation of those recommendations from Professor Keogh urgently. Many campaigners feel that there's a need for urgent regulation, and so we're hoping that the government will actually bring forward that regulation before the general election. And we can see legislation on the statute book fairly soon.
Right.
Now what we're trying to do is speak to Sasha, who's the main campaigner on this. She'll explain what the issue is, and she'll explain where we are. Helen, have you got Sasha on the line? Right, here she comes. Let's see if we get her. Hello, Sasha, can you hear me?
Good morning, John. I can hear you.
Where are you?
I'm sitting in a field in Glastonbury.
Oh, did you have a good weekend?
It's been very hard work, and it was a taste of my old life.
What was Dolly Parton like?
Dolly Parton was very dolly.
I saw some of it on the TV, and it looked absolutely terrific.
Yeah.
Who was the best band?
For me, Palanatini.
Oh, yeah.
And Lana Del Rey. I love Lana Del Rey.
Yeah. I think Paolo's got his own style, hasn't he, basically? It's
Yeah,
that
he's
mix
very
of jazz
passionate.
and blues and all the rest. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
very, very passionate. I really enjoyed him.
Yeah. He sort of came from nowhere about a couple of years ago, didn't he? They had his own style, then burst upon the scene. Oh,
Very Scottish Italian.
Yeah. And also, I just think he's original, isn't he?
Yes,
Completely
I
original.
love Paolo.
Yeah.
I missed him 2 years running in Glastonbury, and I finally got to see him. But I'm not sure which is harder work, Glastonbury or My Beautiful Life.
I've only been to Glastonbury once. They invited me down there to speak about the Ministry of Peace campaign I was running then. And I went down there thinking I was talking on left field, and Mr. Eva said, no, you're on the pyramid stage. So I actually spoke from the pyramid stage.
Oh my goodness, which year was
It
that?
was about 4 or 5 years ago, yeah.
I would have been here.
I think 40,000 people cleared out of that field as rapidly as they possibly could as soon as I came on. So if you ever need to clear this field, I can do it straight away.
Can you hear me clearly? I'm not getting feedback on this.
No, it's perfect.
Okay.
Right. Sasha, just take it from the top. What started this campaign?
Okay, in 2011, I made the big mistake of having my eyes lasered, and for years I had said it was something I would never do, and I forgot why I'd said I'd never do it. I was scared, but I was scared of the possibility of having my eyes screwed up rather than the operation, and sure enough, if it's going to happen to anybody, it'll happen to me. But following which, I discovered that there are actually thousands and thousands of people whose eyes have been damaged, and until I came along, it was all kept quiet and under wraps. And as you know, in 2005, Frank Cook presented a bill to Parliament calling for legislation, and a panel was formed to scrutinise the industry, but for reasons which I know very well now why, it never got any further. The main high street industry do not want the truth to come out. And I think there's probably 30 to 40% people being damaged by this surgery. And it's become my life. I mean, you have your eyes damaged, you walk into somewhere, pay the money, and they mess up your eyes. And I wasn't going to just go away and be kept quiet. And this has become my life. I want legislation. I want to stop more people being damaged, having their lives ruined, their families destroyed. The problems are horrendous, and as I said before, it's been kept under wraps for too long. Just explain what happened to you, because people need to know what the damage can occur. Well, when you have eye surgery, you sign a disclaimer or waiver, and there's about 40 points on it that this could happen, that could happen. And when you question this, it's very hurried. Oh, just sign it, just sign it. It's just for legal reasons. You only find out what the legal reasons are when you have a problem and try and take legal action. It's very, very difficult. But some of the problems that can occur are halos, starburst, which is looking at lights and it looks like you're seeing fireworks of light, dry eyes, and dry eyes is far more serious than it sounds. The dry eyes is like having needles stuck in your eyes, your eyelids stick to your eyeballs. It is absolutely horrendous. It's not just a case of having a little bit of dry eye that you use dry eye drops for. There's halos. For me, I have loss of depth perception. I can't see in low light. I have starburst, dry eyes. I also have MGD, which is my bony and gland disease. I won't go into that right now. It would take too long. But the other thing is, for me, I lost my near vision. I only wore glasses for distance, and I've worn glasses since I was 14 years old. I now wear 3 prescriptions for distance, intermediate, computer, television, and for reading. I've totally lost my near vision, which is one of the most distressing things about the results of this surgery. And my eyes are destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. But there are people far worse than me.
Tell me about some of the people you've met.
I've met people, I run, as you know, My Beautiful Eyes, which is a free advisory service, and I try and help or advise other people like myself who have nowhere to go. And I am contacted every single day by increasing numbers of people who've had their eyes damaged. Now, for instance, if you go to my website, Optical Express Through My Life, you can read just a few of the true stories. And there is, for instance, Craig. Craig is a grip. He works on films, TV, and he has had 8 operations. The first one went wrong. They did a second one. That went wrong, and literally he has had 8 operations, and his eyes are completely messed up. But the other thing that the industry do, the high street industry specifically I'm talking about, is they try and keep you in the house for 3 years, because you only have 3 years to litigate, to take legal action. And once that 3 years is up, you've had it. And what they do is keep telling people, oh, we can fix you, we can help you. And in fact, they're just going from bad to worse. And Craig is just, he's not unique. But there are other people who are left with such serious dry eyes, and you get what's called chronic, gosh, I'm trying to think of the word, I've gone dead, I'm in Glastonbury, different world. But basically, you get erosions on your corneal erosions, and they're very, very painful. The problems just go on and on and on, John. And as far as I'm concerned, it just isn't worth the risk.
Did you know about the risk before you took?
No.
Were you made aware of the risk?
No. When you go, you are sold surgery. They sell it like they're selling used cars or a new hairstyle. Oh, no problems. No, nobody ever goes blind. Oh, no problems. No, nobody ever goes blind. Actually, people have gone blind. But you're given a form to sign, it's so lengthy. And on the forms, one of the forms says you should rely on the advice of a surgeon. Now, in fact, you do not see that surgeon until minutes before you're operated on. And the sales counsellors, they're not optometrists. They are literally, they're reps. They're selling a product. And the optometrists and the sales counsellors are on target-based salaries. Therefore, it's in their interest to sell as many procedures as possible. And they actually tell patients they're suitable for surgery when in fact they're not. And they hope that the surgeon will pick this up on the day of operation. But the surgeon is also under great pressure. They are on target-based payments. I can't really explain that, but they have targets to meet, and instead of doing maybe 5 operations a day as a reputable top surgeon would do, they are sometimes doing 20, 25 operations a day, and people are being missed somebody should not be operated on, but the surgeon is under such pressure, they're missing that and they're operating. I mean, the problems, as you know, John, they're horrendous. Absolutely horrendous.
I've seen many examples of people who come forward who have watched read the adverts, received some of the information, gone along, not been properly advised on some of the drawbacks and some of the consequences of the potential adverse consequences of the operation itself, gone ahead. And I agree with you, I've met example after example now of people who've really suffered as a result. Now, what's interesting is we met Professor Harminder Dur from the Royal College, and he's explained what a good surgeon would do, which would be making sure, first of all, there's a proper assessment of the person's capability of having the laser eye, because for many people it doesn't suit, does it? The type of laser eye. Then after that is making sure that they have all the information in front of them of the potential risk. And then in the good practices, and there are many good practices here that we've met, the surgeon will be the person who sees them from start to finish, and will look after them all the way through. This chopping up between a salesperson, optometrist, then surgeon, then a different surgeon after that, seems to break that link between the patient and the actual person who's undertaken the operation. So it breaks down that there's that consistency.
There's no continuity, and a good surgeon, you should see the surgeon before. You need to talk through what's going to happen, what the possibilities of problems are. I was told when I asked the optometrist, talk to the surgeon. You see the surgeon hasn't got time to go through everything with you. And one of the main things that we are fighting for is fully informed consent. Now, I think if everybody was given full information, it would indeed cut at least half the number of people who would go ahead and have this surgery. And then those that still choose to go ahead, if they've been fully informed, then that's their choice. But when people are not fully informed, they've paid their money and they can't believe what's happened to them. And then one of the biggest problems, which I forgot to mention, is, of course, depression. 99% of my clients, my beautiful life clients, have suffered with depression, as did I, which is how I ended up in this situation. I became obsessed. I researched it. There was nothing. You couldn't find any negative stories until I came along. And that's because companies like Optical Express, they have full-time IT teams who trawl the internet. They flood the internet with advertising. You try and find negative reviews. You will only find it on my website.
Let's be careful though, Sasha. You know what these companies are like in terms of legal actions, etc. If that's an allegation made there, if Optical Express want to respond to that, please contact us and we'll be able to make sure that we give them the opportunity to respond to any allegations like that. Obviously you've referred to a website as well. If any company that wants to respond on any of these issues whatsoever, we have to demonstrate balance and would allow them to respond.
Absolutely.
And again, we'd welcome that debate. These are allegations, and if true, what we want the companies, obviously if true, they'd be extremely worrying, but what we'd welcome is anyone who feels they're affected by this or concerned about this to contact us. But if the companies themselves that you've made reference to want to respond as well, we'd be only too pleased to engage in a discussion with them on air about how they respond to these, well, we have to say allegations that have been made.
Yeah.
Happy to have on air a discussion between the companies, some of the surgeons that have come from the Royal College are expressing their concerns as well as some of the patients, because the whole point of your campaign, from what I've seen from meeting you, Sasha, is to first of all get out there what is the truth, and then to look at how we can get some consensus about how we go forward on resolving some of these problems. Let's talk about that, because let's go through the proposals that you think the government should now implement. The first thing you mentioned was about marketing overall, wasn't it? How do you control that?
The marketing needs to be controlled. All these glossy ads that you could go in your lunch hour and come out with sparkling eyes and no problems is nonsensical, totally, and misleading.
One of the things that Keogh picked up on was the use of competitions to sell cosmetic surgery. That's still going on, and I thought at one point the companies had dropped all that, but then I received, well, it's curious, when I was on air a few months ago, both I and the other presenter received text messages selling laser eye treatment. It was an absolutely bizarre coincidence. We were both on air at the same time, and we both got the same texts trying to sell laser eye surgery.
Even I got one, John.
Did you?
I got one on a phone because obviously the industry know my address, they had my bank account details online at one point. But just to make clear, when we're talking about allegations, if anybody, I welcome being sued. Notice that 2 years I've been speaking out and telling the truth, and nobody has sued me because I am telling the truth.
But at the same time, I have to make sure that I protect the Hayes FM as well.
Okay.
Because it's important. It's important we're straight with people, that if any company that you've expressed concerns about wishes to come on air and put its side, we're perfectly keen to do. Well, very keen to do that. But I think the most important thing in all of this is to try and get as much of a debate as possible, so that those who have expressed their concerns can express them honestly and very sincerely, and put therefore their proposals on how things can be reformed and improved, and also that we engage in all of those that are within this sector or industry, however you describe it, so that we can raise standards overall. And if the individual companies want to put their case, saying, no, this isn't how we operate, or we're improving, or whatever, we'd only be too willing to engage in that debate on air or wherever, wouldn't you?
Yeah. John, I've invited them. I've posted, I've contacted, as you know, two of the leading, the main high street clinics.
Yes.
I've invited them to talk to me, to talk about, and they don't want to do it.
Well, let's make that invitation through Hayes FM as well, because we were both on a Radio 5 programme a few months ago.
Yeah.
And again, they did come on air for a short period of time, but let's invite them again, because what we want to do is engage in that debate and have it as open and as transparent as we possibly can.
I'm with you on that.
Just go further in terms of what do you think the government now should be bringing forward legislation? That's the key thing. Is it voluntary regulation or is it legislation?
I think it should be legislation. Voluntary is not going to work. I've had conversations with the CEOs of the two leading high street chains, and they both say, oh no, we're doing it properly, we're fine, we're not doing anything wrong. They're not willing to voluntarily put into place any regulation. It has to be legislated by the government. And as I've said before, this is a far bigger scandal than the cosmetic surgery industry, and this is going to explode. I guarantee by the end of this year, it's going to be headline news.
Do you think it's a bigger scandal because it's so many more people undertaking this surgery, and because of its impact on the eyes?
I don't think it's just a bigger scandal because, yes, definitely statistically there are far more people. Everybody I seem to meet nowadays, I mentioned laser eye surgery, and you mustn't forget refractive lens exchange, which is cataract surgery being performed on people who haven't got cataract. But so many people are doing it. That's not the only reason. The reason is that it's your eyes. It's one of your most precious senses. And no disrespect to anybody, boob jobs, derma implants, whatever they're called. Your eyes. You're actually messing with your eyes.
It's one of those sensors that could destroy lives, and we've seen that.
You damage your eyes and there's no going back.
I think that's why Frank Cook was so adamant that there was a need for legislation at that time, because he went through it himself, and then he met so many people, and that was when the surgery, 10 years ago, this is when it was in its earliest stages, I suppose, of development. Now it's on quite a sizable stage. I've met with the government minister, and I know that you've asked for a meeting with the minister as well. The government minister, Minister for Health basically, assured us that the various expert working groups were undertaking a detailed review, that they would come forward with proposals, but that's dragging on a bit, isn't it?
It's dragging on, and for me, as you know, John, it's not enough. It's not enough. I want this, this needs to be looked at. If they could look at breast implants to that extent, then they need to do it for eyes. Eyes are so I can't say it enough, they're so important.
Well, we met with the Minister, Professor Dewar and I from the Royal College, and we're trying to emphasise the urgency of it and also making sure that this issue didn't get swallowed up in the overall discussion of cosmetic surgery, and that there had to be a very specialist look at this particular area, and that we needed more specialists from in laser eye surgery, refractive eye surgery. We needed more of those involved in the process. Now, the Minister did give that assurance he would look at that, and that there would be appropriate specialist advice being provided on the way forward on this. My own view is this: I think there's a willingness to act from the professional surgeons about the need for proper regulation, the proper monitoring of standards, proper training, and also I think there's an appreciation about the need to control the sales techniques, the pressurized sales techniques. So a consensus seems to be emerging amongst practitioners, but I agree with you, there will always be a resistance within a sector that's based upon sizable profits or gaining sizable profits. There will always be a resistance to proper legislation regulating.
Yeah, but there's one thing, I argue this every day virtually. I do not consider this to be cosmetic surgery. Now, I actually spoke to Professor Harminderjur just a week ago, and he put it better than I have. It's not cosmetic surgery, but people are undertaking it as a cosmetic procedure.
Yeah.
But I will always stick up to the fact it is not cosmetic. It's not superficial, it's your eyes.
I agree. The reality is, though, the reason we've come under the Keogh report is because that gave us an opportunity, didn't it, of looking at a process that was taking place already. So although Keogh was all about breast implants and cosmetic surgery, the lobby to get him to look at laser eye surgery worked very effectively. And he, in his correspondence with us, he said, yes, this will be part of my review. And clearly in his recommendations, he's doing exactly as we asked him to do, which is the emphasis about regulating the promotion and advertising and salesmanship, ending the competition type effect that they use in terms of selling in those pressurized sales techniques that they've done so far, and also the proper regulation of raising standards and ensuring that people are properly qualified, and the aftercare element he picked up as well. So at least it gives us that hook to push it a bit further, doesn't it?
Yeah, but there is still one point we haven't mentioned here, is the actual, when they're advertising 99% success rate. Firstly, 20/20 vision does not mean perfect vision. You can have 20/20 vision, but you might not be able to see at night, or you can't drive at night because of starburst. 20/20 vision is not perfect vision. And my main point here is the fact that what needs to be, I believe, surgeons should be publishing their statistics, because I
success rate, you mean?
Yeah, the success rate, or the failure, whichever way round you want it. But the GM, I can name a couple of surgeons for the sake of us all being sued. I won't at this point. There are surgeons who are repeatedly messing up people's eyes, and they've been reported to the GMC. And the GMC are on my hit list too on this, because the GMC again, they're sweeping aside, oh, well, it was too long ago, or this, they're making excuses, and surgeons are repeating the mistakes. But there's also another reason for this. Surgeons in the high street clinics do not see, as we've just discussed, they don't see the patient before surgery and they don't see after. And I know for a fact, I found out years after my surgery, the surgeon who operated on my eye, I didn't even know I had problems until a year later.
Sasha, exactly as Professor Dewar said to the Minister, we need to ensure that there is collection of data around the overall process, and that data is published and open and transparent. And I was shocked when you explained to me that there wasn't. I've seen the information that's provided on the sales pitches about 99.99% success rate. That doesn't reflect what we know in terms of the people coming forward. But in addition to that, it's actually not based upon any data that's collected centrally by government or any independent body, as far as I can see. Now,
but I also. God, sorry.
Well, I'm about to tell you. You will not believe this. I've just had a text, Optical Express, Last chance to win free laser eye surgery in June. Reply yes to enter our free prize draw. Prize worth up to £5,390. Opt out. Reply stop. You couldn't make this up, could you?
No, I know, you really, really couldn't.
I must save this somehow. This has come in at, yes, this came in just after 11. It's just... I honestly thought that when Professor Keogh included in his report that these prize-winning type sales techniques was recommended against and should hold. I honestly thought people would listen. But that's the end of June. Well, it's too late
incredible.
now.
But I also, as I started to say earlier, I have a couple of phone numbers, and the industry know my main number, and they sent me a text like you just had. And I was at the time working on the BBC 5 Live Investigates, and I spoke to the producer and said, you won't believe it, I've just had a text like you just had, John. And I set up a recording which you may or may not have heard. And the sales counsellor phoned me up. Well, the tele-sales person phoned me up. And I asked them ridiculous questions. Can I have surgery if I've got dry eyes? Oh, yes. I've got rheumatoid arthritis. Can I have surgery? Oh, yes, my mother's got that. It's a problem with the bones, isn't it? And I was trying so hard not to crack up laughing. I said, I've got a lazy eye. Can I have eye surgery? Oh, yes, oh, yes. And it was just ridiculous. And at the end of it, I said, thank you. What's your name? Well, Stacey, I'm Sasha Rodoy, and you'll be listening to this on YouTube. And it is one of my classics.
Again, just in the interest of, we're a local community radio station.
Yes.
We have to abide by balance and quite correctly under Ofcom rules. So, and also to ensure that we're all protected from any threats of legal action, etc. I just want to say to Optical Express, please contact me and please come on air. We'd really like you to come on air now. And in the interest of balance, I think it is absolutely important that someone from the industry, like in Optical Express, contacts me. We interview them over the next week. They can put their side of the case. What has been said today is allegations have been made, and if true, are serious. So therefore, why doesn't someone, a representative of Optical Express, come on air and explain what's going on? But I'm really shocked. Yet again, I've got this advert. It's just extraordinary, isn't it? Isn't it an amazing coincidence?
Yeah. It would be fantastic if we could get them to come on air, but I don't think they're brave enough, John.
Let's see. Sasha, thank you very much for coming on air. Thank you very much for all that you're doing in campaigning. And let's continue on and try and get this government to respond. The Minister for Health.
And thank you. And I'd just like to say one final thing. John, thank you so much, because if you hadn't supported me, my campaign would not be where it is now, and I thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, but let's see how far we get. It's important that we keep the pressure on for the regulation and proper legislation.
Okay.
Thanks, Sasha. All the best.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Right. Let's now go to the break, and then we'll come back and we'll run through our local events